The Wrestling Vault.
Hello and welcome to the Wrestling Vault podcast. I'm your host Lee Christie, and here we are to discuss the past, the present, and the future of professional wrestling. History, careers, it's all here. Today we talk about the man who revolutionised professional wrestling with a 6-minute promo. The voice of the voiceless, the Second City Saint, could say he's the cult of personality, the best in the world. Phil Brooks, aka CM Punk. Phil Brooks began his professional wrestling career in a backyard wrestling promotion of his own creation, LWF, Lunatic Wrestling Federation. In the 90s, seen as hardcore yet untrained wrestler, including Phil at this time, were perceived as rebels, almost making a joke to the professional wrestling sport given its endless halls of history. Some saw it as fun, Phil saw it as a career. Despite this, LWF would be the place he would earn his name. Being in a tag team named Chick Magnets, Phil would name himself CM Punk. As a step towards taking his career further, Phil began to train with the likes of Ace Steel, and then making friends such as Colt Cabana, whom he would travel with throughout his indie wrestling career. Jumping from NWA to ROH, Ring of Honor, was regarded as one of the best independent promotions in the 2000s, ranging with championship caliber talent in the making. CM Punk would have instant classics with AJ Styles, Colt Cabana, the Clockwork Orange match with Raven, and then the trilogy of matches which would put him on the map with Samoa Joe. Then came a time after the summer of Punk, winning indie belts, having tiny stints in TNA, and creating history in ROH and the independent circuit where you must present your prime abilities elsewhere. That is when CM Punk would sign on to World Wrestling Entertainment, WWE, in July 2005. In his heel persona, during his last ROH run, Ring of Honor, iconically signed his contract on the ROH Championship belt, stating, "Kiss my ass goodbye." Part 2. Developmental Hell. Punk was signed to WWE in 2005, being sent to the main roster straight away. However, after a few short appearances and clear indications that the company didn't know how to manage him or so use him in the product, they sent him immediately to developmental promotion for WWE, OVW, known as Ohio Valley Wrestling. The development has seen stars such as John Cena, Batista, Brock Lesnar, and all the likes come out and then eventually succeed. There were no guarantees. Knowing the rebellious look of CM Punk and what he represented, tattoos, eyeliner, sporadic abilities in the ring, the upper levels of WWE management didn't know how to market or transform him, which Punk refused to change. A pattern of wrestling formula at the time where people looked for tall, bulldozer, boring wrestlers, whereas Punk did not fit the mold. A generalization of WWE talent. WWE isn't as performative as the indies and more storytelling, marketing. Punk and WWE were on two different planets. Until Paul Heyman stepped in, working close with Punk, teaching him the insides and outs of professional wrestling, which includes the production and filming, the presentation, and even the character design. Some would argue, if it weren't for Paul Heyman, Punk would have been fired in less than a month and would have remained an indie legend. After almost a year in developmental hell, Vince McMahon's sequel version of ECW would return on air. ECW, synonymous with extreme death-like matching, was a revolution in the wrestling business. However, after the McMahons bought ECW, he created one of the worst reboots of any television or media, nicknamed WWE ECW. WWE ECW will be reviewed negatively, losing its treasured presentation and hardcore antics only to be used as another developmental brand. A third brand that sat in between Monday Night Raw and Friday Night SmackDown on Tuesdays. In its darkest hour, Paul Heyman saw CM Punk as a WrestleMania main eventer in championship caliber. In a match between John Morrison and Punk in 2008, Punk would walk away victorious with the WWE ECW belt. This honeymoon wouldn't last long, however, as creative roadblocks with Vince McMahon and destroying the image of ECW made Paul Heyman step away from the rebooted project, rendering the project dead and off-air shortly after. Fast forward to 2008 to 2009, CM Punk is finally recognised, winning a Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania 24 and drafted to Raw, cashing in and winning his first World Heavyweight Championship. Part 3. Pipe Bomb. After a short period of being WWE Heavyweight Champion, the company still had no idea what storyline or character development to attach to CM Punk, thus creating the Straight Edge Society, synonymous with Punk's motto of being straight edge. This faction would be quite iconic in 2010, combined with Punk himself, Serena, and Luke Gallows. This faction and Punk's sequel team, despite how iconic it was also short-lived. Punk would then go on to feud with upper talent, the likes of Randy Orton, Chris Jericho, and most importantly, John Cena. In a time when Cena was plastered on every poster, every lunchbox, and marketed to kids, the adult audience could not stand it, criticising his professional wrestling abilities and his cookie-cutter, corporate creation character. Punk was just at the right moment at the right time. After his sequel faction stint with Nexus, a team of upcomers which acted as an opposite to Cena, Punk would then reveal in June of 2011 that his contract would expire a day after the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. In his heel persona, he charmed the audience, saying that he's glad he's getting away from the cesspit. After a back and forth feud with Cena, it would escalate to the highest pinnacle. On the 27th of June 2011, and the ending of Monday Night Raw would shape professional wrestling as we know it today, creating the most talked about, most controversial, most inspirational, and most iconic promo in professional wrestling history. The Pipe Bomb. Part 4. Exit and Return. Even after all that Punk had done, he had not been granted the WrestleMania main event. Backstage issues with Vince McMahon and Triple H would come to light, even bleeding into the show programming. After Cena and Punk had their greatest match in arguably both careers at Money in the Bank 2011, with Punk standing victorious and walking out with the WWE belt in his hometown of Chicago, years would flow by, with Punk coming back the next night and be treated to a 434 iconic championship reign. Quite arguably the greatest and most iconic professional wrestling reign of all time. But after all that, still no cigar, still no main event. Blame McMahon and creative. They still did not see him as a WrestleMania main eventer, even in his prime, and his white-hot stage of being over with the crowd. The Rock and Cena, both first match and rematch, would main event over him, causing a rupture of events, forcing his leave. After years of mistrust, even after his 5-star classic matches, his Undertaker Street match, his highly regarded career, CM Punk left WWE in 2014, but not on his own terms, being fired on his wedding day. Some argue intentionally by Vince McMahon, some don't. This would make CM Punk the biggest what if in history. What if he had main evented? What if his creativity was treated right? Those 7 years of absence left the product controversial. Fans growing up stepped away from the product, even got disinterested in wrestling, including myself, until a miracle. CM Punk would make one of the grandest returns to professional wrestling in 2021 on the episode of AEW Dynamite, WWE's rival company competitor. Having an illustrious career in the beginning with winning his first championship in 10 years. Having memorable feuds with MJF, Jon Moxley, and Hangman Adam Page. Just like the CM Punk story, honeymoons don't last forever. In the 2022 All Out Scrum, CM Punk would go on a half-an-hour rant about the unprofessionalism of the promotion AEW, his fallout with Colt Cabana, Hangman Adam Page going off script on Punk's and AEW's first $1 million house draw, and the irresponsibility of journalism reporting in the professional wrestling business. This would lead to his suspension, his return in 2023, and the backstage incident with Jack Perry, who wanted to use real glass of a car window for a wrestling match. Punk would disagree and warn him of the dangers. Perry would proceed to go on live television and say the notorious line, "Real glass, go cry me a river." The jeopardy of mistrust and unprofessionalism in AEW would lead to the incident of Punk and Perry fighting backstage. Punk telling Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, to his face that he quits and this place is full of clowns. His last AEW match being a full circle moment with Samoa Joe for the AEW Championship, which Punk would walk out with victorious. Part 5. The Last Dance. Months go by. Whispers begin. A Punk WWE return on the horizon. On the night of Survivor Series 2023, CM Punk would make another glorious return, but to his real home, WWE. Punk would go on to claim in his first promo back in the company to finish what he started, main eventing WrestleMania. However, in the 2024 Royal Rumble, Punk would be injured by Drew McIntyre, forcing production and most importantly, the story between Seth Rollins versus CM Punk for the championship at WrestleMania 40. An act of revenge to McIntyre and storyline wise. The two would begin a legendary feud. Drew and Punk would continue the trilogy feud. Punk screwing Drew in his home country of Scotland at Castle Castle. The strap match between the two in Berlin and finalising at Bad Blood, being one of the most iconic and most hardcore matches the WWE has seen in decades. In the new year of 2025, Punk would attempt again to win a Royal Rumble but was defeated, going on to compete in the Elimination Chamber, which also grants a WrestleMania main event spot for the winner, but was defeated in this beautiful twilight moment of each other's careers, John Cena. Then, Cena would later go on to transform the professional wrestling landscape with his heel turn. Placed into a feud with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, the rivalry and storyline would spiral with as Reigns' right-hand man, Paul Heyman, would side with Punk, granting him the favour of being in the WrestleMania main event thanks to Roman Reigns. In this full circle moment of WrestleMania 41, Punk's first promo in OVW with the older Punk now repeating the lines would ring around the world, playing his older theme, "This Fire Burns." He finally did it. He main evented WrestleMania, completing his goal he had since seeing Roddy Piper as a child. Was this main event controversial? Yes. Was the booking too? Yes. Was the creative poor? Maybe. Did they save night 1 of WrestleMania 41 with this main event? 100%. The main event would be notorious with the fans as saying that this night 1 card was awful. And this main event between Reigns, Rollins and Punk would be a 5-star classic as it lived up to be. This was CM Punk's career as of writing, soon to be a Hall of Famer, a saviour, a cult of personality. My name is Lee Christie, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Wrestling Vault. Take care.